Hello, my name is Ása and this is the course Lærum Íslensku, or Let's Learn Icelandic. Today let's start with some very easy conversational Icelandic, basically learning how to say simple words like yes, no and maybe. So if you don't know any Icelandic at all, just this is your absolutely first attempt at trying to learn anything, then this is a good place to start. But even if you know some Icelandic, even almost at the intermediate level, this lesson might also be useful because I'm going to try and also explain how we use them in an Icelandic conversation. And this might be slightly different from other languages, so I hope it's useful. Let's just begin. First of all, in Icelandic, when we want to say yes, we say já. Já. Very easy. And the way we use já is the same way that we use yes in English, so there's nothing really special about this. So whenever somebody would say yes, we say já. However, in Icelandic, it is very common in a casual conversation to say it twice. So in English you would almost never say like yes, yes. But in Icelandic it's used so often that it's almost its own word. So we say já já, and we treat it almost like one word where we put the emphasis on the first syllable and not the second one. So it's já já, but not já já. That is a different thing. So we say já já. And contrary to what you would expect, saying it twice doesn't make it stronger, but it makes it weaker. Okay, so if in English we would say yes, yes, we would be like really determined. But while já in Icelandic means yes, já já means more like yes, probably it will be okay. Yes, probably it would work. Yes, probably I could do that. So how do we actually use this? One scenario might, for example, be if you're going to a party and you ask a friend, do you think it's okay if I bring another friend? And then the friend says, yes, it's probably fine. And then you would say, já já, that would probably be perfectly fine. Also, if you ask, if it's quite warm outside and you haven't brought your sunscreen or your sun protection, and you're like, do you think it's okay that I didn't put on any sun lotion? And then the person might say já já, like it will probably be fine, it's only for half an hour or something like this. So always when we say já já, it is less certain than we say já. It's like yes, probably, yes, I suspect it will be fine, something along this line. Then another very commonly used version of já is when we say jáhá. So basically then the já almost starts like an introduction, and then we put the main emphasis on the last syllable, sort of to convey surprise, like jáhá. And this, when we say this actually means, is that so? So somebody tells you something that you didn't expect, and then you say jáhá. So for this, be slightly careful because this can have both positive meaning and a negative meaning. One example of a positive meaning, for example, if your friend came up to you and said, I just went to bingo with my grandmother and I won 2 times in a row. And you say, jáhá, because you don't expect it. You've never met anyone who's won bingo 2 times in a row. So it's like a pleasant surprise. You didn't expect it and you're happy for your friend and you're like, jáhá, like, oh, that was such a happy surprise. But then another friend might come up to you and say, I took this language test for native Chinese speakers and I got 100%, even though I've only studied Chinese for a week. Then you might say, jáhá, because, I'm really surprised that this happened, because it didn't. You don't believe him. So then you would say, jáhá. So it really means like, is that so? And it can really either be in a positive sense or a negative sense. It's all in the intonation and the context. So the main 3 versions of já, I would say, is just saying simply já, or saying já já, which is a softer version like yes, probably, or something like this. And then finally jáhá, which conveys a surprise and really means, is that so? Is that real? This surprises me. So now you know all the main versions of já, and let's move on to nei. Because nei means no in Icelandic, and it's used exactly like in English. Like in English, when you would say no, in Icelandic you say nei. Nei. But then it turns out that with nei we do the same sort of thing. So when we say nei twice, we say neinei, neinei, put the emphasis on the first syllable, and this means no, probably not. The same way as já, we're softening the no. One situation where you might use this is, for example, if it looks like it's about to rain and you ask your friend, you don't think I need an umbrella, do you? And then you might say in English, no, not really, no, it will probably be fine. And in Icelandic you will say neinei, because you don't really know if it's going to rain, so it's not like an absolute no, but you think it will be fine, and then you say neinei. Then we also have the equivalent to jájá, and that is nehei. So when we convey surprise and say no, then we say Nehei. This is almost always positive, so it's always like, no, that's a great surprise, like, no way, that is fantastic. So for example, you might also use this in the bingo example before, like, I won bingo 2 times in a row, Nehei, like, no way, that's fantastic. So these are the 3 main versions of nei. You can say nei, and then it's a normal strong no, just means no. Then you can say neinei, and then it means no, probably not, something like this. It's a little bit softer. And then finally we could say nehei, and this means like no way. Now if we talk about things that are slightly in between yes and no, one of these words is, for example, maybe, like maybe in English. In Icelandic we say kannski. Kannski. And this is very simple because we use it almost exactly like in English. So if somebody asks you something and you're not sure, then you simply say maybe or kannski. Then we have other words that are also kind of in between yes and no. And one of these words is in English is okay. And we actually have just adopted this word from English and we use it a lot. I think most people in most languages do. We would spell it slightly different, as I'll put here below. But we use it exactly the same. So saying okay, like you would in English, is perfectly normal in an Icelandic speech. So don't be afraid of it. Use it all the time. We also have like an Icelandic version of okay. And this is allt í lagi, and this basically means that everything is in order and everything is like it's supposed to be, everything is fine. And this we use almost interchangeably with okay. It doesn't really matter if you say okay or if you say allt í lagi. It almost always, you can swap one for the other and the sentence is almost identical. So if you want to say okay in Icelandic, you can do it the simple way and just use the English one with okay, or you can say allt í lagi. Now for the final word of today, and this is the most Icelandic word of today and maybe in the entire universe, I don't know, but I don't know, or at least wherever I learn a new language, I always find a word and I'm like, this is a fantastic word. This should exist in all the languages. Why does this word not exist in all the languages? And for me, the word jájá is the same. I don't really understand how people in other languages can survive without it, because it can basically mean everything. But at the same time, it's not a word that is especially foreigner friendly because it can mean anything. So it's not complete, it's not like yes, it means já, and then the explanation is done. It's quite more complicated than this. I will tell you the 2 main uses of this word, but basically it's used in almost every single Icelandic conversation, at least a casual conversation. So if you have the option to listen in on native speakers having a conversation without being like creepy about it, but if you happen to be in a situation where this is not terrible, then try to listen in, and I'm sure you will hear them say jájá Jájá over and over again in a very, very different situation. So in the many different meanings. So the word Jájá has like 1,000 meanings, something like this. But I'll tell you the two broad main uses. First of all, Jájá doesn't mean no and it doesn't mean yes. It's somewhere in between. You might use it, for example, if you have a kid that comes up to you and tells you, when I grow up, I'm going to be the president of the United States. But this kid might not even be from the United States, so you know that this is never gonna happen. I mean, it's not even a US citizen. I mean, okay, you just know 100% that this is never gonna happen. But there's no need to crush his dreams. I mean, he's just a kid, so there's no need to crush his dreams and ruin his fantasy. But at the same time, you don't want to indulge in him and tell him he can do something that he absolutely cannot. So instead of saying yes, and confirming this that can never happen, or saying no and crushing his dreams, you just say Jájá. And then he say, I'm going to be the president of the United States. And then you say, oh, Jájá. And that just means, so you said this, I have accepted what you said. I have absorbed what you said, but I'm not making any judgments of whether it's correct or whether it's wrong. It's just I'm acknowledging that I'm listening to you. So in that sense, you might use the word Jájá. Okay. The second use, and this is I would say this is more than half of the use of Jájá falls under this. It might even be as high as 70%, 80%, something like this. It's quite, I think it's the dominating use of Jájá. And that is when you say Jájá, it means that you want a change. Okay. It can be a change of anything. And this is the reason why Jájá can mean 1,000 different things, because you have 1,000 different situations where you want something to change, and in all of this you can just say Jájá. And I will give you a couple of examples, so hopefully you will understand a little bit. And one of them, for example, is if you're talking in a group or with a person and there's a lull in the conversation. Nobody is saying anything, and then it's awkward and it's weird. So you just might say Jájá. And that just indicates that you think that the silence has gone on long enough. Somebody should say something. Sometimes it works, sometimes nobody says anything, and then usually after 10 seconds or 15 seconds, 30 depending on your patience, somebody else will say Jájá. And once this has been done 2 or 3 times, you're basically socially obligated to say something, and then the conversation will start again. So this is one of the examples, but it applies to all the chains. For example, if you're at work and you've been working really hard and everyone in your group has been working really hard and everyone is completely tired, then you might say Jájá, like this has been enough, now we need a break, let's go to a break. Then you just say Jájá, and then you all go to the break. But it might also have the opposite meaning. For example, if you're sitting in the coffee room and you've been sitting there for a really long time and you've not done anything and it's time to start working again, then you might also say Jájá. And this means, we have taken a break long enough, now it's time, we should probably get back to work. But instead of saying all of this, you can just say Jájá. And everyone knows what you mean, and people will start thinking to themselves, he or she is correct, I should really start and get working. The beauty of Jájá is that it's very indirect. Like, it doesn't mean yes, it doesn't mean no. It's not a really, like a rough, you're not really being pushy or mean or demanding when you say Jájá. You're just acknowledging that this is a situation that maybe it would be better to change. So that means that the word Jájá is almost never rude. At least in a casual setting, it's always, or almost always, it's polite. So even if you're trying to push somebody to do something, as a rule, it is not rude. Of course, if you really want to make it rude, I'm sure you can. But as a rule, it's a very neutral, very sort of laid-back word that you can use whenever you want some situation or something at all to change. This is a summary of what we covered in this lesson. If you want to look at it for longer, just press pause. So this is the exercise Finndu rétta svarið, or find the correct response. We have 5 situations and then try to match them to the 5 answers on the right so that you use all the answers in the best way possible. Press pause, try to do this on your own and take all the time that you need. Now I'm going to assume that you already have your answers and you're excited to see the correct results, and now I will give them to you. So here are the answers that I had in mind. If your solution was different but you still think it's correct, or maybe if you don't understand why it's wrong, just leave a comment and a question and I will try to answer it the best that I can. That is all for today. Now you know how to say yes, no, and maybe in Icelandic. Bless, bless!